Generation X is often described as independent, private, skeptical, low drama. They built the early internet, but don't feel the need to document their lives on it. They're known for strong work ethic, critical thinking, and a quiet belief that no one is coming to save them. To younger generations, they can seem distant, even strange. But generational traits don't appear out of nowhere. They are shaped by environment, economics, technology, family structure, cultural tension. To understand Generation X, we have to understand the conditions that shaped them. Gen X was born roughly between 1965 and 1980. They grew up during rising divorce rates, economic uncertainty, and the normalization of two-income households. Many became what was known as latchkey kids. They came home to empty houses, made their own food, solved their own problems. No smartphones, no constant parental supervision, no GPS tracking. Psychologically, this creates early autonomy. When children must self-regulate, they develop independence faster. But independence formed under necessity is different from independence formed by choice. Gen X grew up in a world that felt unstable. Cold War, nuclear threat, drills, political scandals, corporate layoffs. The cultural message was subtle but powerful. Security is not guaranteed. This creates what psychologists call an internal locus of control. A belief that survival depends on your own actions. And when that belief forms early, you stop waiting for rescue. Gen X grew up fully analog. They used encyclopedias, landlines, physical maps, in-person communication. Their identities formed before social media existed. Then, as adults, they helped build the digital world. Many early tech pioneers were Gen X, but because their sense of self was already formed, the internet became a tool, not a mirror. For them, privacy is normal, silence is normal. Not broadcasting your life is normal. Validation for Gen X came from in-person interaction, not metrics, not likes, not follower counts. Psychologically, if your identity forms before digital comparison, you are less dependent on digital approval. To younger generations raised online, sharing feels natural. To Gen X, it can feel unnecessary. Gen X grew up during institutional distrust. Watergate, Iran-Contra, corporate corruption, media bias debates. The cultural tone was skeptical. Music reflected it. Film reflected it. Comedy reflected it. They were taught implicitly to question authority. Psychologically, repeated exposure to broken systems builds skepticism. And skepticism, when balanced, becomes critical thinking. Gen X entered adulthood during economic recessions and corporate restructuring. They watched pensions disappear, companies downsize, loyalty become optional. This shaped their approach to work. It's not blind loyalty, but personal competence, skill building, adaptability, quiet persistence. They often don't complain publicly because they were socialized to endure privately. Not because they lack emotion, but because expression was not always rewarded. To younger generations, Gen X can appear emotionally reserved. They don't constantly perform their identity. They don't publicly narrate their struggles. They value privacy. But this isn't coldness. It's adaptation to a world where vulnerability wasn't always safe or socially rewarded. Every generation normalizes the conditions it grew up in. What feels natural to one feels strange to another. Generations are not better or worse. They are responses to different environments. Gen X developed independence because supervision decreased. They developed skepticism because institutions faltered. They developed privacy because identity formed offline. They developed resilience because stability was uncertain. The real lesson isn't about Gen X, it's about environment. Technology shapes identity. Economics shape mindset. Family structures shape emotional development. And today's environment is shaping the next generation right now. The question isn't which generation is stronger. The question is, what traits are we building into the future? If you want to understand how history shapes human behavior, subscribe. Because psychology doesn't just explain individuals, it explains generations.